In the heart of bustling New York City, where neon lights never dim, Aisha Thompson, a single Black American mother, fights daily to keep the flame of hope alive for herself and her 4-year-old son, Malik. Their tiny apartment, tucked away in Harlem, has peeling walls and echoes with the sound of ambulance sirens from the streets below. Every morning, Aisha rises before dawn, her eyes tired but resolute. She prepares Malik a simple breakfast of bread and peanut butter before walking him to the free daycare at the corner. Aisha was once a promising ballet dancer, her graceful movements captivating audiences in small Brooklyn theaters. She had dreamed of dancing under the spotlight at Lincoln Center one day, but that dream vanished when she became pregnant with Malik at 19. Malik's father, a young soldier named Marcus, was killed on an overseas mission, leaving Aisha with a broken heart and a heavy burden. Her family, conservative and disapproving of her out-of-wedlock pregnancy, turned their backs on her, forcing Aisha to face the world alone. Now, at 23, Aisha works at a small cafe called Bean and Brew in Midtown, where she serves espressos to business people and tourists with a strained smile. Her modest wages and inconsistent tips barely cover rent and necessities. Every month, she has to choose between paying the electric bill or buying Malik a new pair of shoes. He's growing so fast that the old ones no longer fit. Yet, despite the hardship, Malik's bright eyes and radiant smile are why she keeps going. One drizzly Wednesday afternoon, when the cafe was nearly empty, Aisha was wiping down the counter when she felt a gaze fixed on her. She looked up and met the eyes of a man sitting in the corner near a fogged-up window. He looked to be in his 30s, with neatly combed blonde hair and piercing blue eyes that seemed to see through every secret. His tailored gray suit clung perfectly to his frame, and the glinting watch on his wrist made it clear he didn't belong to the world of ordinary customers. Aisha felt a chill run down her spine, but quickly returned to her task, telling herself she had no time to be distracted. The man, Ethan Caldwell, was a name even Aisha, who paid little attention to high society, had heard before. A self-made billionaire, owner of Caldwell Innovations, a tech empire known for bold acquisitions and a discreet lifestyle. Yet, whispers about him weren't just about wealth. They spoke of mystery, a tragic loss no one dared to speak of. Today, Ethan wasn't at Bean and Brew for the coffee. He came for Aisha, though even he didn't fully understand why. As the cafe neared closing, Aisha's red-haired co-worker, Lucy, approached with a white envelope. "Aisha," the man in the corner, "asked me to give this to you," she said, her voice full of curiosity. Aisha frowned and took the envelope, her hands slightly trembling. Inside was a handwritten note in firm, clear script. "Aisha Thompson, I have a proposal that could change your life and your son's. Meet me at 8 p.m. tomorrow at the address below. Come alone. Ethan Caldwell." Attached was an address to a mansion in Westchester, a suburb where only the wealthiest New Yorkers owned property. Aisha's heart pounded. She wasn't naive enough to believe someone like Ethan Caldwell would make such an offer without a price. But the image of Malik, with his wide eyes and innocent question, "Mommy, do we have chicken tomorrow?" flashed in her mind. If there was any chance, no matter how small, to give her son a better life, she had to take it. That night, Aisha sat by the window in their cramped apartment, watching the rain fall on the glistening streets. Malik slept soundly on the small bed, his steady breathing the only sound breaking the silence. Aisha clutched Ethan's note, a storm of hope and fear rising in her chest. She knew stepping into Ethan Caldwell's world might be a dangerous gamble, but she also knew her current life couldn't go on forever. She took a deep breath and told herself, "For Malik, I'll do anything." The next morning, Aisha dropped Malik off at daycare like usual, hugging him tightly before she left. "Love you, baby," she whispered. Malik grinned from ear to ear, blissfully unaware of the storm awaiting his mother. On the subway ride to the cafe, Aisha couldn't stop thinking about tonight's meeting. What did Ethan Caldwell want from her? And what could she, a single mother with nothing but love for her child, possibly offer a man who already had the world? As twilight descended, Aisha stood in front of the mirror in her apartment, wearing a simple black dress, the nicest outfit she owned. She tied her hair into a neat bun, trying to hide the anxiety in her eyes. Looking at her reflection, she didn't just see a mother. She saw a woman who had once dreamed Anded under stage lights. Maybe, just maybe, a part of that Aisha still lived inside her. She exited the apartment, locked the door behind her, and headed toward the station to catch the train to Westchester. The rain had stopped, leaving puddles glistening under the streetlights. With each step, Aisha felt the weight of the decision she was about to make. She didn't know that in this very moment, her fate, Malik's future, and Ethan Caldwell's guarded world were beginning to intertwine, leading them into a journey filled with drama, secrets, and emotions no one could predict. The subway swayed along the tracks, carrying Aisha Thompson away from the noisy streets of Harlem toward the quiet suburbs of Westchester. The dim lights inside the train car lit her face, where anxiety and determination were intertwined. Her simple black dress clung to her slender frame, but Aisha felt like she was stepping into a world that didn't belong to her. Inside her small handbag, Ethan Caldwell's note lay folded, a reminder that there was no turning back. Ethan's mansion appeared at the end of an oak-lined road with towering iron gates and warm golden lanterns glowing in the dusk. Aisha took a deep breath and stepped through the gate, where a butler in a black suit was waiting. "Miss Thompson, please follow me," he said, his voice even and polite. She nodded, trying to hide her trembling hands as she entered the grand foyer. The space was overwhelming. Soaring ceilings, abstract paintings on the walls, and marble floors that shimmered under the crystal chandeliers. The butler led Aisha down a long hallway, where her footsteps echoed like a lonely melody. At the end, a pair of oak double doors opened to reveal a room more intimate than she had expected. Towering bookshelves filled with leather-bound volumes lined the walls. A fireplace crackled softly, and Ethan Caldwell stood by the window, his back turned. He wore a simple white shirt with rolled-up sleeves, yet still radiated an unmistakable aura of power. "Ms. Thompson, thank you for coming," Ethan said as he turned around with a faint smile. His deep blue eyes seemed to see right through her, and Aisha instinctively clenched her fists. "Please, have a seat." He gestured toward a velvet-upholstered chair across from his desk. Aisha sat, keeping her back straight, trying to maintain her composure. She said, "You said you had a proposal," her voice sharper than she had intended. "What is it?" Ethan sat opposite her, resting his hands on the desk and interlacing his fingers. "I've been observing you at the cafe, Aisha. Not just because you work hard, but because of how you treat people. Patient, strong, and carrying a quiet sorrow. I know about your circumstances and Malik, and believe I can help." His words made Aisha wary. "How do you know about my son?" she asked, eyes narrowing. Ethan raised a hand as if to calm her. "I have the resources to find out, but I mean no harm. I need someone like you, a dancer who can bring art to my private events. In return, I'll pay you enough that you and Malik will never have to worry about money again." Aisha frowned, trying to process what she was hearing. "A dancer? Do you mean ballet? Why me? New York is full of professional dancers." Ethan tilted his head, a trace of something unreadable in his gaze. "Because you have something they don't. A story. People will feel your soul when you dance. That's what I want for my guests. The offer sounded too good to be true, and Aisha knew such things often come with a heavy price. "What are the conditions?" she asked, voice low but firm. Ethan slid a folder across the desk. "This contract outlines everything. You'll perform at private events, only for me and a few guests. There is no physical contact and no requests outside of dancing. For each performance, you'll receive a significant sum, and if you agree to stay long-term, I'll ensure Malik gets scholarships to the best schools." Aisha glanced through the contract. The terms were written, but they sent a chill through her. Each signature would draw her deeper into Ethan's world, where she wasn't sure she belonged. She thought of Malik, his tight-fitting shoes, and the sleepless nights worrying about rent. "What if I refuse?" she asked, meeting Ethan's gaze. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Then you return to your life, and we never see each other again. But we both know you didn't come here to say no." She bit her lip, feeling like she was standing at a crossroads with no return. With a shaky breath, Aisha picked up the pen and signed her name on the contract. Ethan nodded, a flicker of satisfaction in his eyes. "Welcome to my world, Aisha," he said, his voice deep and laced with something difficult to define. As Aisha prepared to leave, the door suddenly opened, and a woman stepped inside. She was tall, with shimmering blonde hair, pulled into a high ponytail and cold gray eyes. Her red silk dress hugged her figure, and her walking exuded confidence bordering on arrogance. "Ethan, I need to speak with you," she said, then paused when she saw Aisha. Her eyes narrowed as if assessing a threat. "Aisha, this is Claire, my sister," Ethan introduced, his tone calm but slightly tense. "Claire, this is Aisha Thompson, our new dancer." Claire smiled, but it was an icy smile. "A dancer?" she repeated, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "How interesting. I hope you know your place, Ms. Thompson." Aisha stood tall, refusing to be intimidated. "My place is wherever my son is safe," she replied confidently. Claire raised an eyebrow, clearly not expecting such a firm response. She turned to Ethan, her expression as if she wanted to say more, but he shook his head slightly. "We'll talk later, Claire," he said, motioning for her to leave. As Claire exited, leaving behind a trail of expensive perfume, Aisha felt the tension thick in the air. She looked at Ethan, trying to read his intentions, but his face was like a wall, impenetrable. "Don't worry about Claire," Ethan said as he stood. "She's just protective of the family in her way. The butler will take you home, your first performance." 3 days after signing the contract, Aisha Thompson stood before the mirror in her small Harlem apartment, adjusting her neatly tied curls into a high bun. She wore a light sweater and jeans, but in her bag was the ballet outfit she had kept since her days as an ambitious dancer. The outfit, a simple black leotard and a thin white tutu, was the remnant of a dream once broken. But today, it would bring her back to the stage, even if it was only a private stage inside Ethan Caldwell's mansion. By late afternoon, a sleek black car pulled up in front of Aisha's building. The driver, a middle-aged man with an unreadable face, opened the door for her. On the way to Westchester, Aisha looked out the window as Manhattan's skyscrapers gradually led to tree-lined streets. She clutched her bag tightly, trying to shake the feeling that she was entering a world beyond her control. The image of Malik playing with wooden blocks at daycare was the flame keeping her steady. At the mansion, Aisha was led to a small but luxurious dressing room with a large mirror framed in gold and a rack of lavish ballet dresses, A young staff member with a friendly smile handed Aisha a small box. "Mr. Caldwell wants you to wear this," she said. Inside was a sea green ballet outfit with shimmering silver embroidery. Aisha ran her hand across the soft fabric, feeling both amazed and uneasy. The costume was more beautiful than anything she had ever worn, but it also reminded her that she was now playing a game whose rules were set by Ethan. The outfit hugged her body when Aisha stepped out of the dressing room, highlighting every powerful yet graceful line. She tied her ballet shoes, the ribbons wrapped tightly around her ankles, and took a deep breath. The butler led her to a grand ballroom with polished wooden floors, deep red velvet curtains, and chandeliers casting shimmering light. Ethan sat in the front row, dressed in a dark gray suit, alongside 3 guests. 2 middle-aged men in elegant attire, and an older woman with a glittering pearl necklace. The silence was suffocating, broken only by the pounding of Aisha's heart. Ethan gave a slight nod, signaling her to begin. A symphonic piece by Tchaikovsky filled the room, the opening notes of Swan Lake echoing gently. Aisha closed her eyes, letting the music guide her. She began to move, her feet gliding across the floor, her arms rising like wings. Each step was a story, of the nights she cried in her cold apartment, Malik's smile when she sang him lullabies, and the long-buried ballet dream. Her dance was not just technique. It was the soul of a mother, a woman who had fought and never surrendered. Ethan watched, his eyes fixed on Aisha. He had expected her to be good, but hadn't anticipated how deeply her dance would move him. It wasn't just beautiful, but real, as if she had told her life story through each movement. The guests whispered among themselves, clearly captivated, but Ethan remained still, his hands gripping the armrest, feeling something profound stir within him. When the music ended, Aisha held her final pose, breath ragged but gaze unwavering. The room fell silent. Then Ethan stood and began to clap slowly. The guests followed, their applause echoing like affirmation. "Magnificent, Miss Thompson," Ethan said, his voice low and filled with emotion. "You've exceeded my expectations." Aisha bowed, trying to conceal the flood of relief. "Thank you, Mr. Caldwell," she replied, her voice calm though a storm swirled within. Her moment of triumph was cut short when Claire entered the room, her black silk dress accentuating her poised, haughty presence. "A remarkable performance," Claire said sweetly, though her eyes were cold. "But I wonder, Ms. Thompson, do you belong here?" Aisha stood tall, refusing to be rattled. "I'm here to work, Ms. Caldwell. I don't need to belong anywhere except where my son needs me." Claire smirked, clearly displeased with the answer. She turned to Ethan, her expression laced with challenge. "I hope you know what you're doing, Ethan," she said before leaving a tense air behind. Ethan said nothing and motioned for the butler to escort Aisha back to the dressing room. But Aisha caught a flicker of concern in his eyes that made her wonder, did Claire know something she didn't? As Aisha removed the ballet costume from the dressing room, she heard footsteps and hushed voices from the hallway. Curious, she opened the door and saw Ethan speaking on the phone. "No, she can't know," he said, his voice tense. "This secret must stay hidden, at least for now." Aisha felt her chest tighten. What secret? Did it involve her or Malik? She shut the door, trying to calm herself, but the seed of doubt had already been planted. On the ride back to Harlem, Aisha sat in the car, her mind a whirlwind. The performance had been a success, and she knew the money from Ethan would help pay rent, buy Malik new clothes, and even allow for a special dinner for the two of them. But Claire's words and Ethan's secretive call lingered like dark clouds on the horizon. She had entered Ethan Caldwell's world, but now wondered if she was strong enough to face the mysteries and threats that lurked beneath its polished surface. When the car stopped in front of her building, Aisha looked up at the apartment window, where a faint light awaited her. "For Malik," she whispered, then stepped out of the car, carrying hope and fear in equal measure. Late at night in Harlem, dim streetlights filtered through the thin curtains of Aisha Thompson's small apartment, casting faint shadows across her face as she sat at the kitchen table. A cup of chamomile tea had gone cold, and in front of her lay Ethan Caldwell's contract. The black and white lines, a stark reminder of her bold decision. Malik's steady breathing came from the small bed in the corner, but Aisha's mind could find no peace. Her first performance at Ethan's mansion had been a success, yet Claire's cold words and Ethan's secret phone call haunted her. She wondered whether she was walking into a trap, or if this was truly a chance to change her and Malik's life. Aisha closed her eyes, and memories from the past surged over her like a wave. She saw herself in a ballet studio in Brooklyn at 17, where sunlight streamed through tall windows and danced across the wooden floors in glittering patches. She wore a worn leotard and fraying ballet shoes, but she felt like she was flying when the music played. Her teacher, Mrs. Rosa, a former black ballerina with tightly bound silver hair, used to say, "Aisha, you've got fire in every step. Don't let anyone put it out." Aisha had dreamed of a scholarship to Juilliard, of becoming the first black woman to lead a major ballet company. But that dream vanished in an instant. She had met Marcus at a community ball, a young soldier with a warm smile and eyes full of hope. He wasn't like the other boys in the neighborhood. He spoke of building a family, of serving the country to create a better future. Aisha, who had always guarded her heart, let herself fall in love. But that love came with a steep cost. When she discovered she was pregnant with Malik, Marcus promised he'd return after his deployment in Afghanistan to build a home with her. But he never came back. A letter from the military, with cold and formal words, informed her he had died in a roadside bombing. The pain of losing Marcus nearly drowned Aisha, but what shattered her even more was her family turning their backs on her. Her mother, a conservative woman who worked at the local church, called her a disgrace to the family. Her father, a weary-eyed bus driver, remained silent, but that silence hurt more than scolding ever could. They kicked her out of the house, leaving her with a small suitcase and a child growing in her womb. She moved to Harlem, working in grocery stores and laundromats to survive, but never gave up on Malik. He was her light, the reason she woke up each morning, even when she felt like drowning in darkness. Aisha opened her eyes and returned to the present. She ran her fingers across the contract, thinking about Ethan's promised money. It would be enough to send Malik to a better preschool to stop the sleepless nights worrying about bills. But she wasn't naive. Ethan Caldwell, with his sharp eyes and deep, commanding voice, wasn't someone who did anything without reason. The phone conversation she had overheard, "She can't know," echoed in her head. What secret? Was it about her or about Malik? And Claire, with her icy smile and warning words, clearly didn't want her at the mansion. Aisha felt like a pawn in a game whose rules she didn't understand. She stood and walked over to Malik's bed. He was fast asleep, one arm wrapped around an old teddy bear, his face peaceful like an angel's. Aisha gently brushed the curl from his forehead, a surge of strength rising within her. "I won't let anyone hurt you," she whispered. But deep down, she knew continuing the contract with Ethan was a gamble. It could bring them a better life, but also pull her into a world full of danger. She thought of Claire, of the hostility in her eyes, and wondered whether she had the strength to face whatever lay ahead. The next morning, Aisha took Malik to daycare as usual. He hugged her tightly and whispered, "Mommy, I will draw a picture for you today." Aisha smiled, though the smile concealed a deep worry. She couldn't stop thinking about Ethan on the subway ride to the Café Bean and Brew. What did he want from her, Why her? A single mother with nothing but a forgotten gift for ballet. And what was the secret he was hiding? At the cafe, the workday passed in its usual blur. Aisha poured coffee, wiped tables, and chatted with customers, but her mind was elsewhere. When her shift ended, she received a message from an unknown number. Next performance. Friday, 7 p.m. The car will pick you up at 5. EC. Aisha stared at her phone screen, feeling both relief and tension. Another performance meant more money, but she was sinking deeper into Ethan's world. That night, Aisha sat in front of the mirror, rehearsing a few ballet moves to prepare. She moved gracefully in the cramped space of her apartment, her feet gliding across the worn wooden floor, as if they had never forgotten the steps. But every time she paused, Ethan and Claire's faces returned. She remembered Ethan's gaze during her performance, as if he had seen something more profound than the dance. And she remembered Claire's words, "I hope you know your place." Aisha clenched her fists, determined not to let anyone make her feel small. As she prepared for bed, a thought struck her. She needed to learn more about Ethan, why he had chosen her, and his hidden secret. No matter how promising his offer sounded, she couldn't unquestioningly trust a man like him. With Malik at the center of her world, Aisha knew she had to be careful, not just for herself, but for her son's future. She lay beside Malik, listening to his soft breathing, and promised herself that she would never give up, no matter how dangerous the road ahead became. Morning sunlight filtered through the cracks in the curtains of Aisha Thompson's small Harlem apartment, casting a soft glow across her face as she prepared breakfast for Malik. The 4-year-old sat on a chair, legs swinging, chattering about a picture he had drawn at daycare, a house with a bright sun and 2 people holding hands. "That's me and you, right?" Aisha asked with a smile, though a storm was raging inside her. The contract with Ethan Caldwell had brought hope, but growing suspicions about him and the hostility from his sister Claire made her feel like she was walking a tightrope. Aisha's first performance at Ethan's mansion remained vivid in her mind. Her dance had captivated Ethan and his guests, but Claire's icy warning, "I hope you know your place," and Ethan's secretive words, "She can't say," continued to haunt her. Aisha knew she couldn't rely on Ethan's promises alone. She had to be cautious, especially now that Claire seemed intent on forcing her out of their world. That morning, at Bean & Brew in Midtown, Aisha was wiping down the counter when her co-worker Lucy pulled her aside. "Aisha, did you hear?" Lucy whispered, eyes gleaming with curiosity. "Some regulars were talking. A new dancer in Westchester is causing quite a stir among the elite. They're calling her, well, a gold digger, using a billionaire for personal gain." Aisha felt heat rise in her face. She knew instantly Claire was behind the rumors. "Did they mention any names?" she asked, her voice calm, but her grip on the rag tightening. Lucy shook her head. "No, but you know how the rich love to embellish things." All day, Aisha worked with a growing sense of unease. She didn't care about idle gossip, but she worried about the impact it could have on Malik and the opportunities she was fighting for in a world already harsh to a black boy growing up in poverty. After her shift ended, Aisha returned home, her mind still clouded. She had just unlocked her apartment door when she noticed a plain white envelope slid under it. Her heart pounded as she opened it. Inside was a handwritten note. "Your secret will be exposed if you don't walk away. Please don't test me." Aisha clenched the letter, anger flaring in her chest. She didn't know what Claire might have discovered, or whether this was simply a tactic to intimidate her. Her past held no shame, only the scars of a single mother's fight to survive. But the letter, paired with the rumors, made her feel hunted. She stuffed it into her bag, resolving to harden. She would confront Claire. If Claire thought she could scare Aisha into quitting, She had miscalculated. On Friday, when Ethan's black car arrived to pick her up for the next performance, Aisha stepped into it with a renewed determination. She wouldn't let Claire intimidate her, and she needed answers from Ethan about the secret he was keeping. At the mansion, Aisha changed into her sea green ballet costume, tied her shoes, and mentally prepared for the performance. But before entering the ballroom, she heard raised voices from a nearby room. Curious, she moved closer and recognized Claire's sharp, disdainful tone. "Who does she think she is, walking into our world, Ethan?" Claire's voice rang through the half-closed door. "Some cheap dancer from Harlem? Does she belong here?" Ethan's voice responded, low but firm. "That's enough, Claire. Aisha is not a threat. She's talented, and I want to help her. If you can't accept that, then stay out of it." Claire scoffed. "Help? Or are you trying to make up for Emily? Does she know anything about your past? About what you did?" Aisha felt her heart clench. "Emily? What did you do?" She stepped back, trying to process what she had just heard. But footsteps forced her to return to the ballroom quickly. She had no time to think. The performance was about to begin. Ethan was already there with a few new guests as she stepped inside. He nodded at her, a flicker of worry in his eyes, as if he knew she had heard something. Tchaikovsky's Swan Lake began to play, and Aisha let herself dissolve into the music. Her dance this time wasn't just about the past. It was defiance. Every movement declared that she would not be broken, not by Claire, not by anyone. The guests applauded enthusiastically when she finished, but Aisha focused solely on Ethan. He stood and approached her. "You're truly remarkable, Aisha," he said softly. "Thank you." Before she could respond, Claire appeared, cutting through the moment. "A satisfactory performance," she said sweetly, though her eyes were sharp. "But Ms. Thompson, how long can you survive?" Aisha met her gaze, unwavering. "Do you think rumors and letters will scare me? I'm here for my son, and no one, not even you, will stop me." Aisha's firmness took Claire aback, but she quickly regained her arrogant composure. "You'll regret challenging me," she warned, then turned to Ethan. "I hope you know what you're doing, little brother." Ethan stepped forward, his gaze hard. "Claire, you'll face the consequences if you cause Aisha more trouble. I mean it." Claire pressed her lips together, clearly furious, but said nothing more and left. Back in the dressing room, Aisha felt a storm of emotions. She had stood up to Claire, but the threatening letter and Claire's mention of a secret left her uneasy. What secret? Did Claire know something about her past? Or was this just a psychological game? And Ethan had defended her, yet he was hiding something. She needed answers, but she also knew that to find them, she would have to delve deeper into Ethan's world, no matter the risk. On the ride back to Harlem, Aisha stared out the window as the city lights blurred into streaks of gold. She thought of Malik, his smile, his innocence, and reminded herself that she wouldn't give up. But she also knew that Claire wasn't someone who surrendered easily, and the secret she hinted at might change everything. When the car pulled up to her building, Aisha stepped out with a new resolve. She would uncover the truth, for herself and Malik. Under the pale moonlight filtering through the ancient oak trees, the garden behind Ethan Caldwell's mansion in Westchester looked like a still life painting. Lavender beds exhaled a gentle fragrance, and the soft trickle of water from a small fountain broke the night's silence. Aisha Thompson stood on the stone path, her ballet shoes replaced with simple slippers, but her heart was still pounding, as if she had just finished a performance. The second show at the mansion had ended, and though, once again, the guests were enchanted by her talent, Aisha's mind was spinning with questions and doubts. Her confrontation with Claire Caldwell, Ethan's sister, still weighed heavily on her. The threatening letter with the words, "Your secret will be exposed," and the spreading rumors among the elite made Aisha feel cornered. But what unsettled her most was the conversation she had overheard between Claire and Ethan, when Claire mentioned Emily and what you did. Aisha knew that to protect Malik and herself, she needed answers. And tonight, she was determined to confront Ethan. After the guests had left, Ethan invited Aisha to stay and talk privately. "Just for a moment," he said, his voice low but carrying an uncommon sincerity. Aisha nodded, though inside her was a mixture of caution and curiosity. The butler led her into the garden, where Ethan waited beside a small stone table, 2 glasses of red wine shimmering under lantern light. He wore a white shirt with rolled-up sleeves, more relaxed than usual, but his deep blue eyes remained sharp as blades. "Please, have a seat, Aisha," Ethan said, gesturing to the chair opposite him. Aisha sat down, her back straight, hands clasped tightly in her lap. "What do you want from me, Mr. Caldwell?" she asked directly, not in the mood for pleasantries. "I've done what you asked, but I need the truth. Claire is threatening me, and I overheard you speaking about a secret. I have the right to know if it involves me or my son." Ethan studied her momentarily, as if weighing how much to reveal. He took a sip of wine, then set the glass down, his gaze drifting toward the garden. "You're right, Aisha. You deserve to know part of the truth, but I need you to understand. I never intended to harm you or Malik." He paused and drew a deep breath. 5 years ago, I lost my wife, Emily. She was a journalist, a strong woman who fought for justice. She dug too deep into a case involving one of my business rivals. A car accident took her life. But I know it wasn't an accident. It was orchestrated. A chill ran down Aisha's spine. She hadn't expected Ethan to open up like this, and his story reminded her of her losses. "I'm sorry," she said gently, sincerely. "But what does that have to do with me?" Ethan turned back to her, his eyes now stripped of their usual coolness. Raw, emotional. "When I saw you dance, Aisha, I saw a strength in you that reminded me of Emily. You're not just a dancer, but a fighter like she was. But there's something else. I've been investigating a link, something that may connect you to my past. I can't explain it fully yet. I need more proof, but I promise I'll protect you and Malik no matter what happens." Aisha sat frozen. A connection? Between her and his past? She shook her head, trying to grasp what he meant. "What are you talking about? I'm just a single mother from Harlem. I have no connection to your world. If you know something about Malik or me, you must say it now." Ethan raised a hand as if to calm her. "I'm not trying to frighten you. I want you to believe I'm on your side. Claire, she doesn't understand. She thinks I'm risking the family's reputation. But what I see in you, it's something I thought I'd lost. Hope." He paused, his eyes locked with hers. "Give me time, Aisha. I will uncover the truth, and I won't let anyone, not even Claire, hurt you." Aisha felt her heart racing. Part of her wanted to believe Ethan, and he truly cared about her and Malik. But another part, the one hardened by broken promises, warned her to be cautious. "I don't trust easily, Mr. Caldwell," she said firmly. "I've lost too much, and Malik is everything I have. I won't forgive you if you're hiding something that could affect my son." Ethan nodded, as if expecting that answer. "I understand, and I respect that. Just keep dancing, keep being yourself. I'll take care of the rest." He stood and extended his hand. Aisha rose but didn't shake it. "I'll keep going, but not for you," she said. "For Malik." As Aisha left the garden, she was overwhelmed by emotions. Empathy for Ethan's pain, suspicion over the mysterious connection, and fierce determination to protect her son. She couldn't deny that Ethan had a pull not based on wealth or power, but on how he had opened his heart, if only slightly. But she also knew Claire wouldn't stop, and whatever secret Ethan referred to might change everything. On the ride back to Harlem, Aisha stared out the car window, city lights streaking past like falling stars. She thought of Malik and his smile when she read bedtime stories. She thought of Emily, the woman who had died chasing the truth, and wondered if she was now walking a similar path. When the car pulled up to her building, Aisha stepped out, carrying with her a new resolve. She would keep dancing and uncover Ethan's secret, not just to protect Malik, but to understand her place in the intricate world she had stepped into. Saturday morning in Harlem began with its familiar symphony, the honking of cars on the street, children laughing in the courtyard, and Malik singing a nursery rhyme while Aisha prepared breakfast. But today, Aisha felt a vague unease, like a silent storm was forming. She had just returned from her second performance at Ethan Caldwell's mansion, where she had confronted Claire and heard Ethan's heartbreaking account of his wife Emily's death. His words about a mysterious connection between Aisha and his past echoed in her mind, robbing her of rest. Aisha placed a plate of pancakes before Malik, smiling as he clapped excitedly. "Mom, your pancakes are the best!" he squealed. But as he reached for his fork, Aisha noticed something was off. His face was ashen, and the brightness in his eyes had dulled. "Are you okay, baby?" she asked, her voice laced with concern. Malik nodded, but just moments later, he clutched his stomach, his face twisting in pain. "Mom, it hurts," he whispered, before collapsing into her arms. Aisha's heart stopped. She touched Malik's forehead. Hot, alarmingly hot. "Malik, sweetheart, talk to me. Where does it hurt?" she asked, trembling. But Malik could only whimper, his small body trembling. Aisha scooped him up, rushing to grab a cold cloth on his head. But his fever seemed to rise by the second. She fumbled for her phone to call for help, and her hands shook so badly that she dropped it. In her panic, only one name came to mind: Ethan. He had promised to protect her and Malik. Now, she had no other choice. She dialed Ethan, her voice cracking when he answered. "Mr. Caldwell, Malik has a fever. It isn't good. I don't know what to do. Please, help me." On the other end, Ethan's voice turned serious in an instant. "Aisha, stay calm. I'm sending a car now. Be ready. We're taking him to the best hospital in New York." Just 10 minutes later, a sleek black SUV pulled up in front of her building. Aisha wrapped Malik in a thin blanket and rushed to the car, her heart pounding. On the way to Mount Sinai Hospital, Aisha held Malik tightly, whispering soothing words even as she was trembling with fear. Ethan sat beside her, his eyes never leaving the boy. "He'll be okay, Aisha," he said gently, placing a hand on her shoulder. Aisha nodded, though her eyes were wary. She noticed the strange intensity in how Ethan looked at Malik, as if he knew something about the boy she didn't. "Have you ever seen a child like this before?" she asked, her voice low but sharp. Ethan hesitated, a flash of pain crossing his eyes. "I'm not a doctor, but I've seen loved ones suffer. I'll do everything possible to ensure Malik gets the best care." His words were sincere, but Aisha sensed something hidden behind them. She wanted to press further, but the SUV pulled to the hospital entrance, and chaos took over. Doctors and nurses rushed Malik into the emergency room. Aisha stood in the hallway, gripping her hands tightly and holding back tears. Ethan stayed close by, silent, handing her a bottle of water. "Thank you," she whispered, voice choked. She thought of Marcus, of how she'd lost him, and now the fear of losing Malik gripped her like a vice. I can't lose him, Ethan. He's all I have. Ethan looked at her, his expression soft but filled with resolve. You won't lose him, I promise. He called in a department head, who appeared moments later with a medical chart. After a series of tests, the doctor offered reassurance. Your son has a viral fever, not severe. We'll give him medication and monitor him overnight. He'll be okay. Aisha took a long breath as if a boulder had been lifted off her chest. She held Malik's hand, now peacefully asleep in his hospital bed, and a glimmer of hope returned. When the doctor left, Aisha turned to Ethan, her eyes a mix of gratitude and suspicion. Why are you doing all this? She asked. This isn't just about the dance contract. You treat Malik like he matters to you. Ethan looked down as if battling with himself. You're right, Aisha. Malik, he reminds me of something I've lost, and maybe he's something more. But I need time to be sure. His words stunned Aisha. More? What do you mean? She asked, her voice sharper than she intended. Ethan shook his head gently. I don't want to worry you more than I already have. Let's focus on Malik. I'll explain everything when the time is right. Aisha wanted to demand answers, but knew this wasn't the moment. She turned back to Malik, gently stroking his curls, and vowed to uncover the truth, no matter how painful it might be. The next morning, as they left the hospital, Malik felt better, clutching the teddy bear Ethan had given him. Aisha sat silently on the ride back to Harlem, holding Malik close. She watched Ethan driving, his face focused yet distant, contemplative. She knew he was hiding something, and that whatever it was, it involved Malik. With her threatening letter and sharp-tongued warnings, Claire was still a danger. But now, Ethan's secret loomed even larger. When the car stopped in front of her building, Aisha lifted Malik, feeling the warmth of his small body in her arms. Thank you, Ethan, she said, her voice genuine but guarded. Ethan nodded, a hint of sadness in his eyes. Get some rest, Aisha. I'll be in touch soon. As she stepped into her apartment and closed the door behind her, Aisha knew her journey with Ethan was only beginning, and that his secret could change everything. But for Malik, she would face whatever came next. The days following Malik's fever passed in a fragile calm. But Aisha Thompson knew this peace was only temporary. Her small Harlem apartment remained a haven for her and her son. But every time she watched Malik playing with his wooden blocks, his bright smile reminded her of everything she was fighting to protect. The conversation with Ethan Caldwell in his garden, where he revealed the tragic death of his wife, Emily, and hinted at a mysterious connection to Aisha's past, continued to unsettle her. But what worried her most was that Claire, Ethan's sister, seemed hell-bent on forcing her out of their world. On Monday morning, Aisha returned to Bean and Brew in Midtown, trying to focus on work. But the atmosphere in the cafe was different. A few regular customers, who once greeted her warmly, now looked at her cautiously. During lunch break, her colleague Lucy pulled her aside. Aisha, something's not right, Lucy whispered, eyes wide with concern. I overheard some customers saying you're involved in some financial fraud. They claim you're exploiting a billionaire for personal gain. Aisha felt her blood rush to her face. She knew instantly that Claire was behind these rumors, but the accusation of financial fraud was bolder than she had expected. Did they mention any details? She asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Lucy shook her head. No, but gossip spreads fast. Just be careful. Aisha nodded, but inside her raged a storm. Claire wasn't just trying to humiliate her. She was trying to destroy the one thing Aisha still had, her dignity. That evening, as Aisha returned home, she received a call from an unknown number. A man's voice came through, cold and professional. Ms. Thompson, this is Inspector James from the NYPD. We've received a complaint alleging your involvement in a financial fraud case. Please come to the station tomorrow morning to ask questions. Aisha felt the ground vanish beneath her. I haven't done anything wrong, she protested, her voice trembling. This is a mistake. Inspector James responded calmly. Just come in. We'll sort it out. That night, Aisha barely slept. She held Malik close, listening to his gentle breathing, and thought about everything happening around her. Claire had crossed a line, and Aisha knew the threatening letter wasn't empty. She had to act, not just for herself, but to ensure Malik wouldn't be affected by these twisted schemes. She called Ethan, her voice firm but tinged with desperation. Mr. Caldwell, the police have summoned me over a fraud allegation. I know Claire is behind this. Can you help me? Ethan responded immediately, his tone resolute. Aisha, don't worry. I'll send my best lawyer to support you. I'm also launching an investigation into what Claire has done. You're not alone. His words offered some comfort, but Aisha remained cautious. Ethan had promised to protect her, but the secret he continued to hide, the one involving her connection to his past, made it impossible for her to trust him fully. The next morning, Aisha arrived at the police station, accompanied by David Klein, the lawyer Ethan had sent. Klein was a sharp-eyed, confident man in his 50s. In the interrogation room, Inspector James placed a folder in front of her, alleging she had received illegal funds from a fake charity organization. Aisha scanned the documents and quickly noticed numerous discrepancies. I've never taken money from any charity, only from my performance contract with Mr. Caldwell, she said, voice firm. Who filed this complaint? Inspector James shrugged. It was anonymous, but we're required to investigate. Aisha clenched her fists, eyes blazing. I'm a single mother working 12-hour days to support my son. I have no time or reason to commit fraud. These documents are fabricated. I expect you to find out who did it. Her strength caught the inspector off guard. Klein quickly intervened, requesting time to collect rebuttal evidence. After the interrogation, Aisha left the station feeling both relieved and furious. She knew Claire had hired someone to orchestrate this and was determined not to let her win. When she met Ethan at a nearby cafe, he came with updates. He said gravely that I've hired a private investigator to look into Claire. She's been in contact with a forged document broker, and we're tracking it. I'll make sure she can't hurt you again. Aisha looked at Ethan, her gaze a mixture of gratitude and skepticism. Why does Claire hate me so much? She asked. I'm just a dancer, not a threat to your family. Ethan sighed, his expression tinged with sadness. Claire's always feared losing control. After Emily died, she became obsessed with protecting the family's name. She sees you as an outsider, someone who might disrupt everything. But what I see in you is something she'll never understand. Strength. His words stunned Aisha, but she quickly composed herself. If you want to help me, then tell me the truth. The secret you're hiding, is it about Malik? Ethan looked down as if fighting himself. Aisha, I promise I'll tell you when I'm sure. But right now, let me deal with Claire first. You and Malik will be safe. I swear it. As Aisha returned to Harlem, she felt a change within herself. She was no longer the woman who endured in silence. She had faced the police, Claire, and even Ethan. The road ahead was still treacherous, but she now knew she was strong enough to face it. She held Malik tightly and whispered, I'll protect you, no matter what. And deep inside, she made a vow to uncover the truth, not just to stand against Claire, but to finally understand the secret Ethan was keeping. The dim lights of a small Harlem cafe cast a soft glow on Aisha Thompson's face as she sat across from Ethan Caldwell, her hands tightly wrapped around a cup of cold coffee. The past few days had been an emotional whirlwind. From Malik's sudden fever, Claire's threatening letter, to the financial fraud accusation she had to answer at the police station. Ethan had promised to deal with Claire, but Aisha knew she couldn't continue walking in the dark. The secret Ethan kept, the one he called a connection between her and his past, was becoming unbearable. Tonight, she was determined to make him tell the truth. Ethan sat across from her, his deep blue eyes carrying an unusual tension. He wore a simple gray shirt, yet his commanding presence was undeniable. "Aisha, I know you're angry," he said, his voice low. "But you must understand that I didn't hide this to hurt you. I just wanted to protect you and Malik." Aisha tightened her grip, her gaze burning. "Protect me? By keeping me in the dark? Claire is trying to destroy me, and you still haven't told me what this secret is. I have the right to know if it involves my son." Ethan sighed, looking down at the table as if battling with himself. After a moment of silence, he looked up, his eyes filled with emotion. "All right, Aisha. You deserve to know. But please prepare yourself. This won't be easy." He paused and took a deep breath. 6 years ago, my company, Caldwell Innovations, funded a classified military project, a security system for special operations units. That project involved an elite team of soldiers, one of whom was my close friend, Daniel Carter. He died during a mission in Afghanistan. Aisha frowned, trying to make sense of the story. "I'm sorry about your friend, but what does this have to do with me?" Ethan looked directly into her eyes, his voice low but clear. "Daniel had a close friend in the unit, a young soldier named Marcus. I did some digging and discovered that Marcus was Malik's father." Aisha felt the ground fall from beneath her. She shook her head in disbelief. "That's impossible. Marcus never mentioned any project or anyone named Daniel. What are you saying?" Ethan raised his hand gently, trying to calm her. "I know this is hard to believe, Aisha, but after you signed the dance contract, I had a private investigator look into your background for security reasons. I found that Marcus had worked on my project and was very close to Daniel. There was one detail that shook me. Before he died, Daniel told me he had a friend who was about to become a father, and he asked me to look after that man's family if anything happened. I didn't know that friend was Marcus until I met you and Malik." Aisha's heart pounded. She thought of Marcus, his warm smile, the letters he sent from Afghanistan, filled with hope for a future with her and Malik. "You mean Malik might be the son of your best friend?" she asked, her voice trembling. Ethan nodded slowly. "I'm not certain, but all signs point to that. And that's why I wanted to protect you and Malik. I feel a responsibility, not just because of the contract, but because of Daniel and Marcus." Aisha sat still, trying to process what she had just heard. She felt shock and anger rise simultaneously. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" she demanded, her voice sharp. "You let me worry. Let Claire threaten me when you knew this from the beginning?" Ethan bowed his head, guilt in his eyes. "I'm sorry, Aisha. I needed time to verify everything, and I didn't want to hurt you if it was just a theory. But when Claire started digging, I realized she might have discovered the same thing through her investigator. That's why she's targeting you." Aisha shook her head, feeling betrayed. "You say you wanted to protect me but made me feel like a pawn. Malik is my son, not a piece of your past. I don't need you to feel responsible. I need the truth." Ethan looked at her, his expression sincere but pained. "I don't see you or Malik as pawns. You've brought light into my life, Aisha. Watching you dance and see Malik laugh, I feel alive again after losing Emily. I just wanted to do what's right." Aisha stood up, her emotions in chaos. She wanted to believe Ethan, wanted to believe that he genuinely cared for her and Malik. But this truth was too sudden, too painful. "I need time," she said, her voice cracking. "I need to think this through, and I need to be sure Claire won't harm my son." Ethan nodded, not trying to stop her. "I'll deal with Claire and Aisha, and I'll wait for whenever you're ready." As Aisha left the cafe and stepped onto the bustling Harlem street, she felt like she was carrying a new weight. The truth about Marcus and his connection to Ethan left her heartbroken and confused. She thought of Malik, how his smile and eyes reminded her of Marcus, and wondered if he truly was part of a past Ethan now felt bound to protect. When she entered her apartment, she saw Malik sleeping peacefully with his teddy bear. Aisha sat beside him, silent tears falling. She knew Claire remained a threat. This secret could make everything more dangerous. But she also sensed a new connection to Ethan, not just through the contract or responsibility, but through the losses they had both endured. Stroking Malik's hair gently, she whispered, "I'll find the truth, my love, and I won't let anyone hurt you." With a renewed determination, Aisha knew she would have to confront both Claire and Ethan, not just to protect Malik, but to understand herself amid this complex story. The early winter sunlight filtered through the window of Aisha Thompson's small apartment in Harlem, casting its glow on Malik's drawing, a house with a radiant sun and 3 figures holding hands. Aisha sat at the kitchen table, staring at the drawing, her heart heavy with mixed emotions. The truth Ethan Caldwell had revealed about Marcus, Malik's father, and his connection to Ethan's late best friend Daniel still shocked her. She felt grief remembering Marcus and anger at Ethan for keeping the secret for so long. Yet deep down, she also felt a new kind of connection with him. Not just because of their shared past, but because of the sincerity he had shown. In the days following their conversation at the cafe, Aisha tried to focus on Malik and her work at Bean and Brew. Ethan had kept his word and acted swiftly to dismantle Claire's scheme. His private investigator had discovered that Claire had hired a forged document broker to falsely accuse Aisha of financial fraud. Ethan confronted his sister, forcing her to withdraw the accusation and temporarily leave the estate. While Claire remained a potential threat, Aisha felt relieved knowing Ethan was standing by her side. One afternoon, Ethan called her. His voice was gentle, but carried a quiet urgency. "Aisha, I invite you and Malik to a small evening gathering at the estate this weekend. No other guests, just a chance for us to start over." Aisha hesitated, still hurt by Ethan's secret, but she wanted to give him a chance. "I'll think about it," she replied before hanging up, her eyes drifting to Malik, who was playing with the teddy bear Ethan had given him. She knew this decision wasn't just about her, but also her son's future. That night, Aisha sat in front of the mirror, practicing ballet movements. She had decided that if she went to the gathering, she would perform a special dance, not for any contract, but to express her gratitude and the complex emotions she felt for Ethan. She chose Debussy's Clair de Lune, a melody gentle yet full of feeling, just like her heart. On Saturday evening, Aisha and Malik arrived at the estate, greeted by Ethan's warm smile. He wore a simple white shirt and black slacks, understated yet radiating quiet power. In the tiny suit Ethan had sent, Malik squealed with delight at the garden adorned with twinkling lanterns. "Mom, look! It's like a fairy tale!" he exclaimed, tugging at Aisha's hand. She smiled, but her gaze locked onto Ethan, as if searching for a sign that she could trust him. After a light dinner of Malik's favorite dishes, Ethan led them into the ballroom, just the 3. "Aisha, I know you don't have to dance tonight," he said, his voice sincere. "But if you want to, I'd love to see it." Aisha nodded, feeling a surge of strength. She changed into a shimmering silver leotard, laced her ballet shoes, and stepped onto the floor. Malik sat beside Ethan, his eyes lighting up as he watched his mother prepare to perform. As Claire de Lune began to play, Aisha moved. Her dance told a story of the pain of losing Marcus, the nights she fought to raise Malik, and the hope Ethan had brought into her life, even if it came with secrets. Each movement was a wordless thank you and a declaration. She was strong, and no one would define her life but herself. Ethan sat still, his eyes never leaving her, as if her performance touched wounds deep inside him. Malik clapped joyfully as she finished, shouting, "Mom, you're the best dancer!" After the performance, Ethan stood and walked toward Aisha. "You're not just a dancer, Aisha," he said, his voice deep and filled with emotion. "You're an extraordinary woman. Thank you for being here and for giving me this chance." Aisha looked at him, her heart pounding. She wanted to respond, but the pain of the past held her back. She said, "I did this for Malik," though her voice was softer than usual. "And because I want to believe that you care." Ethan smiled, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. "I do care, Aisha, more than I can put into words right now." He turned to Malik, who was playing with a small lantern. "And I care about this little boy. He's a part of you and maybe a part of a past I need to make peace with." A swell of emotion rose in Aisha. She thought of Marcus and Daniel and how fate had intertwined their lives. But she was also afraid that this happiness was too fragile, that Claire or another hidden truth could still destroy everything. They spent the rest of the evening in the garden, where Malik ran among the lanterns, while Aisha and Ethan sat at a stone table, talking about simple things, about Harlem, ballet, and the dreams they once had. When Malik yawned, Aisha scooped him up, ready to head home. Ethan walked them to the car, his eyes never leaving her. "Aisha, I want you to know that I love you," he said, his voice low but steady. "I don't expect you to say anything, but I need you to know." Aisha froze, her heart skipping a beat. She wanted to say something, but the words caught in her throat. She only nodded, stepped into the car, and held Malik tightly. On the drive back to Harlem, she stared out the window as city lights streaked by. Ethan's confession left her both happy and afraid. She had built walls around her heart since Marcus's death, and now Ethan was trying to break them down. She thought of Malik, of the dance tonight, and wondered if she dared to open her heart again. When she tucked Malik into bed, he whispered, "Mom, Mr. Ethan is lovely, isn't he?" Aisha smiled, brushing his hair gently. "Yes, sweetheart. Maybe he is." But in her heart, she knew her journey with Ethan was still full of unknowns. Claire, though restrained, remained a threat, and the truth about Marcus, though exposed, had left questions without answers. Aisha lay down beside Malik, determined that no matter what the future held, she would protect her son, and perhaps her heart, too. The sunset bathed the surface of the Hudson River in gold as Aisha Thompson stood by the riverside, the gentle breeze tousling her curly hair. Nearby, her 4-year-old son Malik ran around joyfully, holding a small kite Ethan Caldwell had given him, his laughter as carefree as if there were no worries in the world. Aisha watched him, her heart filled with love but tinged with unease. Ethan's confession of love at the mansion gathering still echoed within her, leaving her both happy and afraid. She had built walls around her heart since the death of Marcus, Malik's father, and now Ethan was making her want to tear them down, even though she knew the path ahead would not be easy. Over the past week, Ethan had kept his distance, giving Aisha time to process his feelings. But today, he invited her and Malik to a picnic by the Hudson River, saying he had something important to discuss. Aisha agreed, not only out of curiosity, but because she sensed sincerity in Ethan's voice. Claire, his sister, had been temporarily silent after Ethan stopped her actions, but Aisha knew she remained a looming threat. And the truth about Marcus, that he had once worked on a military project funded by Ethan and may have been connected to Ethan's late best friend, Daniel, still left her with unresolved questions. Ethan arrived, stepping out of a black car, dressed in a white shirt and jeans, simple, yet still carrying an air of authority. He held a picnic basket and smiled when he saw Malik trying to launch his kite. "The boy's got talent," he said as he approached Aisha. She nodded, her gaze cautious. "What is it you want to say, Ethan? I know you didn't bring us here to fly kites." Ethan smiled and pointed to a small table near the riverbank, adorned with a white tablecloth and a vase of lavender. "Sit with me for a moment," he said. Aisha sat down while Malik continued playing under the watch of one of Ethan's assistants. Ethan poured 2 glasses of lemonade, his eyes locked on hers. "Aisha, I've been thinking a lot about you and Malik. I don't just want you to dance for me or stay at the mansion as part of a contract. I want you to have something greater, something that belongs to you." Aisha frowned, curious, but still guarded. "What do you mean?" Ethan took a deep breath, his voice low but full of conviction. "I want to build an art center with you in Harlem, for kids like Malik who need a place to dream. You could teach ballet, inspire them, and help them believe their dreams are real. I'll fund everything, but the center will bear your name, the Aisha Thompson Art Center." The proposal stunned Aisha. She thought of the days she practiced ballet in cramped Brooklyn studios, of the dream cut short when she became pregnant with Malik. The idea of opening an art center where she could help other children pursue their passions made her heart race. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Is it for me? Or because you feel responsible for Marcus and Daniel?" Ethan looked her in the eyes, his gaze earnest. "For you, Aisha, because I believe in you, in your strength, and for Malik, he deserves a mother who does extraordinary things. But I won't deny that Marcus and Daniel are the reason. I want to make amends, not just for them, but for myself." Aisha remained silent, emotions swirling inside her. She tried to believe Ethan, but her fear of being hurt again made her hesitate. Before she could answer, Ethan stood and walked toward the river, glowing in the sunset. He turned back, pulled a small box from his pocket, and knelt before her. Aisha felt her breath catch. "Aisha Thompson," he said, his voice deep and steady. "Everything has changed since the day you entered my life. You've shown me what resilience, love, and hope means. I want to spend my life by your side, with you and Malik. Will you marry me?" Aisha covered her mouth, tears falling silently. She looked at the ring inside the box, a simple gold band with a small sparkling diamond, and thought of her journey. She had come so far from the struggles in Harlem, her dances at the mansion, and the truths about Marcus. But she was still afraid this happiness was too fragile, that Claire or the elite world Ethan came from might destroy it. "Ethan, I don't know," she whispered. "I love you, but I'm scared. I need to keep my independence, not just for me, but for Malik." Ethan smiled and gently took her hand. "I don't want you to give up anything, Aisha. I want you to be yourself, strong, independent, and extraordinary. If you say yes, I promise to honor that." Aisha looked into his eyes, saw the sincerity there, and felt a part of the wall around her heart begin to fall. "All right," she said, her voice choked with emotion. "I'll say yes. But you must promise we'll face every challenge together, even Claire or anyone else." Ethan slipped the ring onto her finger, stood, and embraced her tightly. From afar, Malik came running over, shouting, "Mom, what's Mr. Ethan doing?" Aisha laughed and scooped him up. "Mr. Ethan is going to be part of our family now, sweetheart." Malik clapped his hands, not fully grasping the meaning, but his broad smile made both adults laugh. As they returned to the table, Ethan held Aisha's hand, his tone more serious. "Aisha, I need you to be prepared. The media will take notice, especially once news of our engagement spreads. They may not be kind to you because you're not from my world, but I will protect you and Malik, no matter what." Aisha nodded, feeling a flicker of anxiety, but also a surge of determination. She knew the journey ahead wouldn't be easy, but with Ethan by her side, she was ready to face it. On the car ride back to Harlem, Malik dozed off on Aisha's shoulder while she gazed at the ring on her finger, its diamond glinting under the streetlights. She thought of Marcus, the dream she once held, and the future Ethan was now opening up. She knew Claire might return, and the media might be their subsequent trial. But Aisha felt real hope for the first time in years, not just for Malik, but for herself. The gentle June sunlight streamed through the large glass windows of the Caldwell estate in Westchester, where Aisha Thompson stood in front of a mirror wearing a pearl-colored wedding dress adorned with shimmering silver embroidery. She softly smoothed the thin veil, her eyes reflecting nervousness and quiet determination. Today was her wedding day with Ethan Caldwell, a day she had never dared to dream of during the years she struggled in Harlem. Beside her stood Malik, her 4-year-old son, dressed in a tiny suit, holding the ring box with a beaming smile. "Mom, you look like a princess," he exclaimed, making Aisha laugh as tears shimmered in her eyes. The months since the proposal by the Hudson River had passed in a whirlwind. Ethan had kept his promise and, together with Aisha, transformed an old building in Harlem into the Aisha Thompson Arts Center, where she began teaching ballet to underprivileged children in the neighborhood. Each class brought her joy as she saw the sparkle in the children's eyes, the same sparkle she once had when dreaming of big stages. But the journey was far from easy. As Ethan had warned, the media began to take notice of a single black mother from Harlem becoming the fiancée of a white billionaire. Headlines labeled her a gold digger or an unworthy wife, forcing Aisha to fight to hold on to her self-worth. However, Claire, Ethan's sister, reined in after her false accusations and remained a shadow in the background. She didn't show herself directly, but Aisha knew Claire was watching from afar, waiting to stir trouble. But Aisha was no longer easily shaken. The truth about Marcus, Malik's father, and his connection to Ethan's fallen best friend, Daniel, had strengthened her. She had learned to trust Ethan, not only out of love, but because he had proven he would stand by her and Malik no matter what. The wedding occurred in the estate's garden, decorated with white floral arches and twinkling lanterns. Only a few close friends and Ethan's family attended, creating an intimate atmosphere. Malik walked proudly down the aisle, carrying the ring box while Aisha followed, hand in hand with her old friend from Harlem, Mrs. Rosa, her former ballet teacher. Ethan stood at the end of the aisle in a black tuxedo, his eyes locked on hers, filled with love and reverence. As they exchanged vows, Aisha felt as though the scars of her past, Marcus's death, her family's abandonment, the years of struggle, were slowly healing, even if they would never entirely disappear. After the ceremony, the reception occurred under the stars, with soft music and Malik's laughter echoing in the air. Aisha and Ethan shared their first dance, his strong arms wrapped around her like a silent promise. "You've made me the happiest man, Aisha," he whispered. Aisha smiled, resting her head on his shoulder. And you've given Malik and me a home, Ethan. Thank you. But deep down, she knew this happiness wasn't a perfect ending. The world outside was still waiting to test them. A week after the wedding, Aisha faced her greatest challenge. An article in the New York Post titled, "The Mystery Woman Exploiting Billionaire Caldwell." The article quoted anonymous sources. Aisha suspected Claire and raised questions about her past. She was furious, but instead of retreating, she chose to act. With Ethan's support, she organized a public ballet performance at the Aisha Thompson Arts Center, inviting both the media and the Harlem community. On the night of the performance, Aisha stood on the small stage, dressed in an emerald green leotard, her face illuminated by stage lights. Malik sat in the front row next to Ethan, his eyes wide with excitement. She chose Stravinsky's The Firebird, a story of rebirth from ashes. Every step she danced was a declaration. She was not just Ethan's wife, but Aisha Thompson, a dancer, a mother, a woman who had overcome every obstacle. When the music ended, the audience applauded, and Aisha saw tears glistening on Mrs. Rose's cheeks. Ethan stepped onto the stage, embraced her, and whispered, "You did it, Aisha. You proved everything." In the following months, Aisha and Ethan's life stabilized, though not without challenges. The Arts Center flourished, becoming a beacon of hope for Harlem's children, but media scrutiny remained constant. Although Claire had left New York, she occasionally sent sarcastic messages through intermediaries. But Aisha no longer feared her. She and Ethan built a family together, with Malik at the center. One afternoon, as the three strolled through the park, Malik drew a new picture: 3 people holding hands under a shining sun. "This is us, right, Mom?" he asked. Aisha nodded, pulling him into her arms, her eyes meeting Ethan's. "Yes, sweetheart, that's us." Aisha knew the future would hold more trials, whether from the media, from Claire, or secrets yet uncovered. But she also knew she was no longer alone. With Ethan by her side, Malik in her arms, and her dream of the Arts Center now real, she felt ready to face anything. Beneath Harlem's glowing sunset, Aisha walked forward, into a future full of hope, even if imperfect.